Hello and welcome back to our continuing adventures on the Let's Defend platform. Today we are tackling the Linux Disk Forensics Challenge. This is a hard challenge where we are given a 001 file, or is it just 01? Basically a disk image from a Linux device. The Let's Defend box is a Windows one with FTK Imager. And SQLite browser, basically to take a look at the information that would have been stored inside of common web browsers like Google Chrome. And I think it was hash my files, as there is a section in here. So background. Dean downloaded a cracked software application from an unofficial source and subsequently discovered that his personal data has been leaked. An investigation is now underway to determine the cause of the data leak and mitigate any potential damage. Now, I have pulled the 7-zip file, this L34K.7z that was on the desktop, over to my personal box to sit there and just slice and dice. And then we go to questions. What distribution system was used by the victim, including its version? What is the SHA-256 hash of the crack file that was downloaded? What is the IP address and port used by the attacker? What is the specific tool or software employed by the attacker? And which was the year of last use of the Dean account? So you notice that netcat is filled in for the second to last question. That is because I'm returning the favor. Nullwire was asking for assistance, so the hint for this is basically take a look at the auth.log file. And so we're going to get started on that one first, so we can basically just fill that aspect in. So let me get FTK Imager plopped up, and preferably not over everything else, or at least not over the face aspect, since that seemed to be where, okay, here we go. And that transition's over. So I just simply have the 01 file opened up in FTK Imager. I don't have it imaged, or I don't have it mounted, or anything else like that. And so we are in var log, and we're looking at auth.log. So as we're digging through this particular aspect, we will see aspects for policy kit. We will see dpkg pulling down what looks to be Chrome. We'll keep looking. And we start to see immediately some aspects here. So again, we got the policy kit aspect. Then we start seeing CP local state. So we're copying information apparently into /home/o/desktop. Apparently we've got a section for compromise, just missing the, or misspelled. We're going to SU, and we're going to tar. So we're going to take a bunch of information. It looks to be like local state, the login data for Chrome, dump it into a Dean underscore data.tar. And we're going to do netcat, and that's effectively where we end up getting that particular aspect as to what tool was used. So from here, we also get the answer to the other question that was before that. What is the IP address and port used? So it's going to be 192.168.229.129, port 201. Or at least that's the my thought in regards to it. Let's see as to whether or not if we're in the ballpark. We are in the ballpark. We are playing ball. So now the aspect is we need the SHA-256 hash of the crack file that was downloaded. So with this one, if you were to mount it as an image, you could go through and of course you're going to be like, okay, well, what's it referring to? I suppose I should probably get to that particular aspect. So you'll see, or hopefully have noticed, there was or was there not? Am I just, yeah, I think I haven't had my coffee yet today, so bear with me a little bit here. Oh, yeah, here. Or they're dumping stuff to desktop. So, I mean, if we go and we take a look at /home/o/desktop, we have crack. Now, we could export a file hash list and open it up from there. Or if this was mounted as an image, we could browse to that directory and then use the provided tool like hash my files. Crap. Sorry. I thought I had transitioned the thing over. Okay, so hang on, let me reset very quickly. We go back to auth, and we see in the various commands, stuff was basically just getting dumped to /home/o/desktop. So we know that O is obviously used. So we take a look at /home, there's just the O. We take a look at that, and if we look in the general directories that we would typically expect, like downloads, documents, nothing. But we take a look at desktop, and there's our crack file. And if I remember correctly too, if we were to pay close attention to this, we would get the same exact information. That cat-n 192.168.229.129 space 201. So we would get the IP address there. So you could also sit there and export it, everything else along those lines, and do exactly what I have done, which is just taking the hash, run it through VT. It's a known hash. And if, like with anything VT, if we go underneath details, we will get the MD5, the SHA-1, SHA-256, and others. And they specifically want what? The 256, so we can just grab it from here, plop that in, and there we go. Okay, what distribution system was used by the victim, including its version? Distribution. Are we talking distro for whatever system Dean was doing? So it's what? 6 characters, a space, 2 something dot 2 something dot 1. And then a 3 character. Three character. Okay, had to refer back to Practical Linux Forensics Appendix, the 2021 version. I don't know as to whether or not if there's anything else that's there, but it basically breaks down the various aspects And in order to pull distro information, it's going to be different for every single one, but it's usually inside the etc folder. So if I bring this back up, let me take a look. And so I am inside the etc folder. I was looking for like a machine info or machine-info. There also could be a release file, which does not look to be the case. There could be a version file, which doesn't look to be the case. There could also be something dot or slash release or version. Which does not appear to be the case. But in this particular instance, there is an lsb-release. Oh, I guess that technically, it's spelled out as the first one. And if we take a look in there, we get distribution ID, Ubuntu release is 2204, code name, Jammy. Description, Ubuntu 22.04.2 LTS, which coincidentally completely matches the format of what we're looking for. Hooray. Let's see as to whether or not if we're actually on par with this. And we are. Now comes the fun part, which was the year of last use of the Dean account. And with that particular one, I don't know for sure, but I think we're looking at the passwd file for that type of info, I believe. Because there should, if there's a user account, then that's effectively where I would expect to find Dean. But apparently we're gonna have to dig some more, because here's etc passwd. I am not seeing a Dean account. Root, daemon, bin, sys, stuff that we would typically expect to see. We get down to 0, but it's listed as Ahmed Lesaway. Where's Dean? I do not understand. Where did Dean go? And we get the same aspect. So I don't see anything in here in regards to that. Host file. Some share. Yeah, all we have is that O. And that just seems to be just what's there. I suppose if we were to take a look at the date modified, that tells us 2023. So the last potential time. So I'm going to just take a rough stab and we're going to say 2023. Hey, look at that. Sometimes a rough stab is all you need. And I didn't have to use any hints, even though it was kind of spoiled for at least that second to last one, or whatever it was that was Netcat. So much like with everything else, we get date modified. And so effectively, since we did not see a Dean folder underneath home, all there was O. There was no evidence in etc past WD of a Dean account, just O. We're just making the assumption then that O equals Dean, Dean equals O, which means, okay, let's look at the O directory and see was the last time year-wise that thing was modified. We don't see anything for 2024. We don't see anything for 2022, 2021, 2020, all just 2023. So we're kind of taking a stab at it. I don't suppose there'd be anything in here that actually would be dated. Oh, I get the bash history. Sudo copy ls, and then they executed .crack. So we get sudo apt install chrome, wget to pull down from Google's website, the AMD64 deb file. So the deb would pretty much indicate that it's a Debian derivative, Ubuntu being the first thing that mostly would come to mind in terms of actual distros being well known. Debian, of course, being the mainstay. And then going through and doing the install. Then we get the weird stuff afterwards. But so that was nice, and that'll be a quick and dirty aspect. So I guess part of the problem with this is if you don't look at the hint when you start looking for something, specifically for what was used. Like if we go take a look at the crack, we get mentioned of CVE 2021 4034. If we take a look at CVE 2021-4034, this is what? PK exec? But it is, yeah, okay, so the local privilege escalation found in polkits. If you remember in the auth.log file, we saw polkit described. And this is where others have fallen at the same particular point because you're paying attention to the crack, everything else like that. So you may think, okay, the virus total results give us the CVE. When we look at the CVE, it mentions polkit, so we see polkit in auth.log, which means this is, polkit is being used. If we saw more from the crack, that might be the proper way to look at it. But it's instead when we take a look and actually look at it, we don't see mention of the crack in the actual auth.log. What we do see, though, is just simply NC. So kudos to the author of this challenge, because they specifically, so most of us would know netcat by just NC, November Charlie. They specifically made it 6 characters as opposed to 2, whereas we'd know it by the shorthand. In order to make you think that looking at all this stuff, oh, well, the answer's got to be polkit, and drive you effectively up a wall as you're trying to figure out, well, how is it not polkit? We take a look at the crack. The hash in VT tells us that it's this CVE. CVE says that it's polkit. Polkit is 6 characters. This thing wants 6 characters. Bing, bang, boom. So a bit of a mind trap to sit there and fall into. And not always the most upfront answer is, as we see, the correct answer. But also when we were taking a look at that crack file, we also did see that hard-coded into that file when we were looking at the hex output. Let me bring that back up. and we were digging through it. So we get that it's an auth file. No, not that batch. That batch. Where it basically does the tar, everything else. But inside here, it specifically calls out. What is it doing? What are they specifically doing inside this aspect? They're establishing a netcat connection to the 192.168.229.129 over port 201, and they're punting that dean underscore data dot tar that we observed in or above this that was being created with the Google Chrome login data. And what is it, local state? Which local state's probably where they keep the session cookies. So I guess the typical aspect, okay, what do we want to do in regards to this? Okay, they got login data. So you're going to want to change all passwords for anything that you've accessed with Chrome. Hopefully it's not that much. You want to terminate any active sessions for anything that allows you to. And typical aspect would be enable MFA like everything else. But effectively, if they got the session cookies, we need to invalidate those session cookies. I believe Google was doing more to invalidate those, given the proliferation of like info stealers that would grab the session cookies and leading to hacks like a lot of various YouTubers. Biggest portion that comes to mind is Linus for LTT. They've got a whole section. I think they've done 2-3 videos on the particular subject. That would be bad. That would be very bad. So I guess let's make sure I'm just not talking out my posterior here. So what does the almighty Google say in regards to Google Chrome local state? And we'll page the other one and we will say, okay, tell me about the login data. Okay, to take that back. So login data would contain the logins, passwords, URLs, bookmarks, cookies from the browser. Or wait, no. That would just be the passwords and such. The local state is the Chrome's setting file. If I'm reading this right. And of course, it's taking forever for Google to come back up with the searches for that aspect. So I'll find a couple of decent portions, answers, and I'll just dump them in the video description for you to take a look at your leisure. So, with all that being said, this has been the Linux Disk Forensics Challenge on the Let's Defend platform. With all that being said, I will see everybody in the next video.